Hello folks, my name is Mark and this is Why I Hate the World. How you guys doing? So a few years ago, Barack Obama gave a speech, and in his speech he addressed all the crazy criticisms and conspiracy theories and things, which is, it's come to be known as Obama derangement syndrome. And he basically said, like, you have to let that kind of thing just sort of, you just have to brush it off. And he made this gesture, like water off a duck's back, And I remember thinking, like, back in the day, like, that kind of, made him the better man. You know what I mean? Like he didn't, it was a very presidential thing to do. And I can't help but notice that Donald Trump is kind of like the exact opposite of Obama. Like, he can't stand it, when somebody criticizes him or anything like that, and he just feels compelled to hit back, Now, during the campaign, that actually works to your benefit, right? As we've seen, right, during the campaign, he basically, attack, right? Especially among, like, Republicans. Like, it seems to just really, that's how he basically swept through all 17 of the idiots in the clown car to emerge as top clown, and that's actually part of, like, his, like, business philosophy, is to, like, whenever somebody, like, slights you, is to hit back with overwhelming force, right? That's great and all when you're a CEO, but when you're the president, it's a different story, and it kind of shows now, like, the contrast between him and Obama. Like, it kind of makes him look like a petulant man-child, like a fucking kind of spoiled man-baby sitting in his high chair, just, whining and crying when, like, the meanies and stuff aren't, everybody out there is acting mean to me, I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, right? And, because this sort of thing started through, I mean, all through his campaign, like, we knew that this is what Trump was all about back then. He had this long-running feud with Rosie O'Donnell. He attacked the family of Khazar Khan, who was a deceased Iraq War veteran, if you remember that. This family went and spoke at the DNC or whatever, and then Trump had to hit him back through Twitter and that kind of thing. That really kind of tanked his poll numbers. I don't know if you guys remember that. He also had a little Twitter war with the former Miss Universe, who was named Elisa Mikado, and calling her fat and difficult to work with and all that, kind of really made him look good. Really improved his relations with women. He had cute little nicknames for all of his opponents, if you guys remember. Little Marco, Lying Ted, and of course, most famously, Crooked Hillary. Attacked John McCain. Just kind of shows that, like, that's because veterans are usually a Republican sacred cow, and he basically attacked John McCain and said, like, he wasn't a hero, and I like heroes that weren't captured, which is bullshit. Just so you guys know, John McCain was captured by the Viet Cong and tortured, right? And because of that, he can't raise his arms above his head like this. He can't do this anymore. So whenever you see John McCain, he's always doing this kind of thing, like, right. Which is really fucking, like, despicable, because Donald Trump is not a veteran. In fact, Donald Trump made statements to the fact that, he was dodging STDs in the 70s, So, make of that what you will. And then he's had, like, other feuds with people throughout his campaign, Mark Cuban and Saturday Night Live, right? Because he was, like, mad because of the way that Alec Baldwin made him look like a fool. And also Judge Gonzalo Curiel, there was a real famous Twitter war with him as well. Twitter attack against that guy, if you remember. He's the judge that was presiding over the Trump University case, right? And Trump basically attacked him and said that, he was biased because of his Mexican heritage and shit like that. Even though this judge was born in Indiana, You know, he's not Mexican at all, right? But, you know, just a little racist there. And this is all shit that happened before the election. So I don't know why people were thinking that he would change the way he acts after he was elected, right? And after he became president. I mean, because he hasn't. You know, everyone's waiting, like, through the whole campaign. We're like, okay, when's he gonna, like, pivot? When's he gonna pivot? When's he gonna, like, stop being a fucking, like, you know, ignorant fucking child and start acting presidential? And he never has. You know, so so after the election, just to name a few instances, there was the whole thing with the cast of Hamilton where he demanded an apology. So if you don't remember that, there was a play called Hamilton. Mike Pence went to see it. The actors kind of said that they, you know, basically gave a message saying, please don't be racist when you become vice president. Donald Trump had to fucking, you know, felt compelled. You know, he couldn't let it go, right? Because he's Donald Trump, so he felt compelled to reach out and, you know, attack them via Twitter. You know, he had to defend his fucking vice president from musical theater. That's what that was. Still mad at Saturday Night Live, this time because Sean Spicer, who's the White House press secretary, you know, he was played by a woman, you know, and Trump thinks that makes him look weak, right? Yeah, let's not forget, you know, how Donald Trump feels about women, right? He attacked John Lewis, who's, if you don't know who that is, he's a congressman who participated in the civil rights movement. And John Lewis basically said, I think Donald Trump is the illegitimate president, and Trump had to hit back at him. So, you know, John Lewis, by the way, he basically said that, you know, your district is crime infested and all that shit, right? Which is, like, has zero truth to it, you know. Just a little bit of race baiting there, actually. And the thing about John Lewis is that he's, like, as close to a hero as you can get, you know. There's pictures of him being, like, beaten by cops and that kind of thing during the civil rights movement, you know. This is a guy that actually went out there and fought in the trenches over this stuff, right? Continuing on, he attacked Boeing on Twitter and basically saying that the contract for Air Force One might be canceled, which caused Boeing's stock to go down by like 1%, right? Which for a company like that translates to like millions upon millions of dollars, right? And he did the same thing to Lockheed Martin. You know, he like made another Twitter like thing against them over the F-15 or some shit, and then their shit went down by like $2 million. So it's like, well, fucking, you know, how many jobs did those two tweets cost, right? Your stock doesn't go down by, you know, millions of dollars without somebody losing their job. I mean, that's just fucking how the shit works, you know. He attacked fucking Nordstrom's because they axed his fucking daughter's clothing line because it wasn't selling anymore for whatever reason, calling it a political move. You know, what motivation does Nordstrom's have to alienate Trump voters, you know? Now, let's not forget that even though Donald Trump lost the popular vote by 3 million people, still somewhere in the area of 45 million people voted for his ass. So why would Nordstrom's want to alienate all those people? You know, corporations are apolitical for the most part, you know, except when it comes to like banks and fucking oil corporations and shit. But something like Nordstrom's, they service the general public. You know, most of the time retail goes out of their way to not take a stand on shit like this, you know. They don't. The point is they don't give a shit about Trump's politics. They give a shit of like whether Trump's daughter's clothes sell or not, which they're not, you know. But Donald Trump can't let it go, you know. He can't, like, even something like a small little thing like this, he takes it as a personal slight, you know, and it just makes him look ridiculous. Jesus Christ. So he makes his, you know, really unconstitutional Muslim ban, which I talked about in my last two videos, right? And then that ban gets, you know, overturned by a judge, you know. In this case, it was U.S. District Judge James L. Robert from, right, so I talked about those in the last two videos. Donald Trump attacks the judge. Okay, he can't, like, you know, because here's the thing, that's how the government is supposed to work, right? And it goes through the court system. You know, you pass something, people challenge it, right? This kind of thing happens all the time. You know, Donald Trump takes it personally, attacks the judge, calls him a so-called, so-called judge, and then basically says if there's a terrorist attack, it's going to be this guy's fault, right? Which is fucking incredibly dangerous. Because if there actually is a terrorist attack, God help us all. That's a subject for another video, though. So that happens, right? Even though this judge, Robert, was like appointed by Bush and has like the best reputation that you could ask for in a judge. You know, this guy's like the most uncorrupt person there is, apparently. So then he makes a Supreme Court nomination for Neil, I think it's Gorsuch is his name, Neil Gorsuch, right? He nominates this guy to the Supreme Court. And then a reporter asks Neil Gorsuch, like, what do you think about Donald Trump attacking this judge? And, Neil Gorsuch, like, gives some negative comments about it. And then Trump attacks his own Supreme Court nominee. So it's like, what the fuck, man? You nominated this guy to be the Supreme Court, to be the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is supposed to be autonomous from the other branches of government. Okay, that's how the government's supposed to work. This guy is not beholden to you. Once he becomes a Supreme Court judge, he doesn't have to take your orders, okay? You're nominating him because of... You're supposed to nominate him because you think that he's going to uphold the Constitution, right? And interpret it in the way that, you agree with, okay? Not because he's supposed to do what you fucking say. So now that's what Trump thinks. That's what he's thinking right here. This guy's working for me. It's like, no, he's not fucking working for you. So do you want him there or not? I mean, so you're gonna, like, attack your own fucking guy for expressing an independent opinion, so what, do you want him to not be a fucking Supreme Court? And then that's fine with me, I'm all happy for Trump not to get a nominee on there, right? Fucking ridiculous. It's like, what the fuck, dude? I mean, and here's the thing, it's starting to, like, I don't know, man. He attacked the Pope. Okay, that's fucking ridiculous. Like, Trump attacked the Pope, calling him disgraceful for questioning Trump's faith, because that's what the Pope did. The Pope questioned his faith, right? Well, why would the Pope do that? Well, let's just keep, in mind certain things. Trump has been married 3 times, right? He has a history of not paying people that he hires, Like, for example, those, like, weird little girl dancers that he got from one of his rallies who did that, disturbingly fucking cringeworthy Trump dance. He didn't pay those people. They had to sue him to get paid, right? He has a history of that kind of thing. And he lies on a daily fucking basis. Like, just lies continuously fly out of this guy's mouth. I mean, all through the campaign, all the way up until now. I mean, the thing about, Flynn resigning yesterday, and then Trump, basically he was aware of that. He was aware that this guy lied, and he covered it up. It's like, that's the brewing shitstorm that will be a subject of a further video. But that just kind of goes to show how untruthful he is. Well, why would, lying, fornicating, right, and, like, stiffing people, ripping people off, those are not very good Christian things. Those are not Christian values. So, but, I mean, it's the Pope, for fucking crying out loud, man. Like, oh my God. And it's starting to seep in and fuck up international relations, There was a real famous story last week how Trump fucking hung up on the Prime Minister of Australia. You got pissed at him because Obama made a deal to take some refugees, Trump doesn't want to take the fucking refugees because he's a Islamophobe or whatever. Right. And he, like, hangs up on him. It's like, this is, like, Australia is, like, the closest ally we have. It goes Australia, Great Britain, Canada. I mean, in that particular, around that order. I don't know, I might have a few of those mixed up. But that's, like, it's within the top 3, I think it's fucking ridiculous. And he's, like, alienating them now, because he's a fucking petulant man-child, because he's a spoiled fucking little brat. He's a goddamn man-baby. And his inability to let shit slide is starting to fuck up, everything. international relations with Australia are strained. It's, how does this shit happen 30 days into a fucking, you know, it's been a month. Let that sink in too, okay? I mean, he's got what, 43 months left or something like that before we can vote, before we can have an election, you know? 47, I think. I don't know. What's 4 times 12? 48. So we got 1 month left. So 47 months left until we can fucking, like, vote his ass out. And it's ridiculous, you know? And the thing is, we knew that this was what he was, right? Because he's been a millionaire since the day he was born. See, people don't understand this shit, right? Trump is somebody who has more money and has had more money since the moment he was conceived than me, you, every single person you know, and every single person you've met. Like, we'll never have the same kind of access to wealth and power that this guy's had, even when he was a child, right? So he's gotten basically every single fucking thing that he's ever wanted his entire life without having to work for it. Can you imagine what that does to somebody? You know, you're a kid, you go, oh, I want this, this, and this for Christmas, and you get it all, you know? You go to the best schools, right? You don't have to work, right? Because your fucking parents are paying, you know, a ridiculous amount of money to whatever. So you basically sail through school without having to put any fucking effort into it, right? You know, you're handed a fucking company when you come of age. I think, what did he get, like $100 million from his dad or something? Or wait, he started out with a small loan of $17 million and then inherited another 100 some odd million dollars. You know, I'd be a billionaire too if I would have got that from my dad. Okay, you know, because there's only, you know, there's a certain point where you just, you know, I mean, it's fucking ridiculous, man. And if you look through his life, he's just continuously failed upwards. Every time, you know, he's actually tried to do anything that requires work, right? That requires putting some effort into it, the shit's failed, okay? Trump casinos, Trump steaks, Trump water, Trump fucking, you know, all the other failed businesses and bankruptcies and shit that he's had. And it's only for the fact that he has so much goddamn money that he hasn't, like, lost it all because there's just too much. That's what it really looks like. All right. I mean, think about, just remember back, you know, the first primary that he lost, right? Because he didn't know what a ground game was. It's like he didn't know that you had to actually go out there and talk to people and go door to door and, like, get people to vote for you, because he treated it the same way that a rich person treats, you know, anything that they want. They just throw a shitload of money at it and assume other people are going to do the work, you know? And that's what's going on in the White House right now. Right, he's assuming other people are fucking doing the work. There was a news story out of the fucking New York Times or whatever, like not that long ago, where he's not even reading his own executive orders. Like, can you fucking believe that shit? Like, he was like surprised that the executive order that he signed put Steve Bannon on the fucking National Security Council. You know, I bet you Hillary Clinton would be reading her fucking, you know, executive orders. Right? It's unfucking believable. Now, remember that this is a guy that, you know, now he's in charge of the United States of America, right? This is the most powerful nation on earth. We have the largest economy of any single nation, you know, discounting the EU. You know, but as a single nation, ours is still the largest economy there is. You know, we have 400 million people or something like that. We have the most powerful military ever in the history of mankind. We are able to project power anywhere in the world at any given time. So, you know, terrorists invade Antarctica, we can be there and fight them. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? We on every continent. It's, you know, this is what, you know, that's what being a superpower means. And now we have a guy who can't fucking let the slightest insult go in charge of all of it. All right, that's how bad shit is right now, right? I mean, that's why over the last 30 days there hasn't been a day without a negative Trump headline, and he's been in like 7 major fucking scandals since then. And now the biggest one is just broke with this whole thing with General Flynn, and, you know, it's fucking that guy Flynn, you know, in Russia and all that. Like, just shit is just hitting the fan left and right. And this is what happens, man, This is what happens when you get an outsider, okay? This is what happens when when you elect someone who's anti-intellectual, right? I don't know. I better cut this short because I could go on for another hour about just complaining about Trump. So, anyway, Trump's a fucking idiot. Adios, folks.